Today, we're going to be predicting who's going to be champion by the end of 2025 in every UFC division. Let's start off with Flyweight.
In Flyweight, it's my favorite Flyweight, Tatsuro Taira. I see him going in there and beating Royval, even though Flyweights only fight like once a year because Dana doesn't book him. Hopefully, he'll get a title shot by the end of 2025, and I think he has what it takes to beat Pantoja.
I thought I was going with a rogue show by going with Tatsuro Taira. I went with the same person. But I think he's going to beat Royval, probably by submission if I had to guess. And then he's going to go on, and it's not going to be Pantoja. Kai Kara-France is going to beat Pantoja probably in like 310 or 311. I think they're going to book that fight. Could be totally wrong. And then I think that with the submission skills, Tatsuro Taira can beat Kai Kara-France for the Flyweight belt.
I didn't even think about that. I was combined their names. Kai Kara-France versus Tatsuro Taira would be a banger.
Yeah.
Because Taira is actually pretty good on the feet and would be able to hold his own. But I like that. I like that more than him beating Pantoja.
It's weird. You probably didn't even think about the possibility that someone other than Pantoja can be the Flyweight champion.
Yeah.
Just feels like he's kind of built for that role. Mm-hmm. But I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Kai Kara-France, and that's the path that I see. I think Tatsuro Taira has a harder chance beating Pantoja than he does beating Kai Kara-France, in my opinion. Because I think he can pretty dominantly submit Kai Kara-France. Mm-hmm. I don't think he can as easily get Pantoja to the ground.
That's true. And Pantoja by far is the most experienced in those championship fights,
Exactly.
4th and 5th round.
Those are his rounds.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Bantamweight division. Who's your Bantamweight pick?
Umar Nurmagomedov.
It's probably the most obvious one.
And especially because he's Dagestani. Did I say it right there? Dagestani. He's been harassing me to learn how to say it properly. Dagestani. Especially because of Umar and him being Dagestani. I just don't see him fighting Merab and Sean O'Malley in the same year. I do think that Sean will inevitably get a rematch, but I just don't know if he'll be back in time. So I think Umar probably only has one fight next year, and it's going to be against Merab for the belt.
That's fair. I think Merab wants to be active, not against Umar, though. Do you see he just posted on Twitter that he wants to give Sean the rematch in November, but Sean is having hip or labrum surgery, so that's not going to happen. He's doing every trick in the book to get out of this Umar fight.
Well, I think he probably also said that because he knew Sean couldn't actually fight. So he'd be like, I called out Sean. I was like, you could have your immediate rematch.
Yeah, that's true.
A little too immediate, though, bro.
Yeah, I did Umar as well. I think he has the most convincing chance to beat someone like Merab, who's just kind of a smothering cardio force. Mm-hmm. I think Umar is better on the feet. I think he can out grapple him as well. I think Khabib is going to put together a game plan that can beat Merab. Mm-hmm. The GOAT at game plans.
Well, I think also if you have Umar being more active on the ground, it's going to look really good for the judges. If Merab's just laying on Umar, but Umar's being active on the ground when he's in control, it's going to look a lot better for these judges,
Agreed. Okay, let's move on to Featherweight. Who's your Featherweight pick?
I have Max Holloway coming out and beating Ilya next month, and then he's going to retain against Volk, and I think he's going to also retain against a guy like Movsar Evloev at the end of the year.
So you think he's going to have this fight in October and then fight Volk in early-ish 2025 and then have one more title defense in 2025?
Yes.
That's insane.
But Max fights a lot.
I know. I don't doubt that he probably has 2 fights in 2025, especially because he is 32 now. Mm-hmm. So he probably wants to keep making a lot of money.
It's crazy how young he is still for how experienced he is in the UFC.
Yeah, but 32 isn't super young. By next year, he's 33. And then, Volk fell off at 35. So
that's true.
You want to get those fights in now. Mm-hmm. For my pick, I actually went with Topuria. I know. You can hate me all you want. Comments are so decisive about whether they love or hate Topuria. Mm-hmm. It's like you're either a Topuria glazer and you've only watched that Volkanovski fight and he's fought nobody good, or you love Max and you're underrating Topuria's power. There's no in between. I think both of them are good. Mm-hmm. I just think if Topuria does manage to beat Holloway, which I'm leaning towards right now, that could change in like the next day. But I think if he can get the win against Max, I honestly don't see any other. I don't see Diego Lopez beating him. I don't see Movsar beating him. I just think he's good.
Yeah, I think whoever wins the fight at 308 probably beats Volk.
Yeah, and that Volk rematch.
Fight. Yeah,
we saw what happened. I don't think Volk's chin is going to get better.
Exactly. After that brutal KO.
Yeah, like maybe his game plan and like, I don't know, his confidence improves a little bit with taking a break. But at the end of the day, you have 5 rounds to catch him.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I think that's the same thing with if Max ends up fighting Volk for a 4th time. I think we finally see Max coming out on top in that fight. And I think it would be very storybook. If Max went out and beat Volk in a 4th fight, do you think you could see Volk retiring after that?
Probably. I don't know. He's like such a stubborn guy.
Yeah, he just wants to fight, but like...
You almost have to retire though. It sucks.
It's so storybook though, you know?
He should have retired on top. Like it feels like he should have retired on top, but now he's just... It's like...
But everyone still thought he was on... I mean, the Islam fights kind of did some damage to him, but he was still the champion coming into that Ilya fight, and I think he was probably the favorite in that fight.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, it just took one punch and...
And everything changed. The whole narrative changed.
Exactly.
He's never been beaten at featherweight to, oh, he's washed up, he's old. Mm-hmm. Which, I don't know, I don't want to say I agree with it.
It's crazy, but like that's what can happen in the UFC.
Yeah. All right, let's move on from the Volk sadness. Who do you have for your lightweight pick?
It's Islam.
Yeah.
I think he beats Arman pretty handily. And then I think he'll fight at the end of 2025 against one of the older guys who's been kind of on the up. Like, who knows, maybe it could be like Dan Hooker.
Potentially, if he beats Justin
Charles again.
Yeah, maybe. Paddy Pimblett.
Year 2 outs. But like, yeah, there's just not really anyone who hasn't fought Islam that I think has a chance. And even the guys who have fought him, it's gonna be a repeat because I think Islam is just getting better and better every fight. That striking is just like...
He gets more exciting with every fight. It's great.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it does suck that he hasn't like fought a lot this year because of that injury. He probably would have fought in December again against Arman, but it's probably going to be early 2025, and then maybe we get another fight. It's hard to say who that fight's going to be against though, because that top 5 has been locked out for so long in lightweight, and it would be nice to see someone break into that.
Yeah.
So who knows? Okay, let's move on to welterweight division. This one was really difficult. You could have probably 4 or 5 people.
The top is so crowded.
Okay, I'm going to go for my person first. This is weird. I went with JDM. I don't know.
Okay.
I love your prediction of JDM and Shavkat having like a trilogy like Max and Volk. I've been thinking about that so much, and that's all I want in the UFC now. How sick would that be?
So I have Shavkat coming out and beating Belal at UFC 310 or 311, whenever that's going to happen. And then at the end of 2025, I have JDM fighting Shavkat in their first fight and it definitely won't be their last, because I think these two are just like both phenomenal and the future of welterweight. They might even be the future of UFC. And I have Shavkat coming out ahead in their first fight.
Okay, that's the script that I had. I had Shavkat fighting Belal for the belt. I pray that Shavkat wins that belt. And then we get Shavkat versus JDM. JDM's going to have one fight in the beginning of 2025, probably against Kamaru Usman, someone like that. And then maybe even Ian Gary, because Ian Gary said he has fight news. But I would assume they want to do Gary versus Leon and have that like as a huge Manchester card, like fight night.
Yeah.
So that would be sick. But yeah, I think JDM versus Shavkat would be the dream matchup for the belt. And it's probably 50-50.
Oh, it's going to... If that fight ever happens, it's going to feed generations. The trilogy.
Okay, let's move on to middleweight now. This one is probably my most rogue shout.
Ooh.
Do you have any predictions?
Is it going to be the same guy that I have?
It might be. Who?
Khamzat Chimaev?
It is.
Yeah.
Wow. Why are we like so in sync today? The only person that we had different so far was Topuria, really. And JDM, I guess.
But like we're both on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
All right, so let me hear Chimaev's path to the title.
Well, look, I don't want it to happen, but I think he has a strong possibility of beating Rob Whittaker. It's probably, in my mind, it's probably 50-50. I'm still going to predict Rob Whittaker to win in my heart because I need that. I'm getting that full violence drop. But realistically, it's probably about 50-50. Khamzat has super dominant wrestling, and we saw Robert Whittaker get taken down by DDP. So it's a possibility there. And then after Khamzat wins, he becomes ranked number 3 if he takes Roberts. Why do I keep on saying his first name?
Like,
I'm so weird. Okay, he takes Whitaker's ranking, which is number 3. And after that, Sean and Dricus are going to fight. You're not going to give him Izzy, I don't think. You're going to give Izzy someone a little bit lower to recover. And so I think that he's going to get a title shot after Strickland and Dricus fight.
Oh, you best believe if Chimaev beats Rob, immediate title shot. And I think it's going to be like a quick turnaround for whoever wins between Sean and Dricus. Like, they're going to have like a 3 or 4 month layoff because the UFC wants Chimaev to have a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think they have to do it in Abu Dhabi still. So they probably have to wait for an Abu Dhabi
That's
card.
true. But like, I have Sean beating Dricus in the rematch. And like, imagine Chimaev versus Sean, like that presser.
That would be insane.
Oh, there would be some crazy stuff said by Sean.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and Khamzat's good in pressers too, against Gilbert Burns. And I think he was against Kevin Holland maybe, where Kevin Holland pulled out. But there was some great moments in his press conferences where he just wants to smash everybody. Yeah, that's a great storyline. Who do you think, realistically, like not for the video, who do you think wins against Khamzat and Dricus, if Dricus would win?
I think Khamzat.
You think so?
Yeah, because I don't think Dricus is like that good on the feet, and I think Khamzat's way better on the ground.
That's a tough one to predict.
It is a tough one. Like, I think that's like a very like, it's gonna be an ugly fight.
I think that's I think that's one where you're gonna see mixed predictions, and then the aftermath on Twitter, you're gonna see all these people posting, oh, it's so obvious Khamzat was gonna win. Obviously he's gonna dominate in the wrestling. But realistically, like, everyone said that about every one of DDP's fights, and then it doesn't come true.
Yeah.
By the time it does come true, everyone's gonna say, oh, DDP always sucked, all this stuff. So I'm waiting for that. Okay, let's move on to our second last division, light heavyweight. Who's going to be the champion at the end of 2025?
It's Alex Poetin Pereira. There's really nobody else. And I think even if Pereira goes up to heavyweight, the UFC's still going to want that title on Pereira and have him go for like the double champ rather than vacate that title, because there's really nobody else who is even close to as marketable as Pereira in that light heavyweight division. So having him as the face of the division, I think it's just better for the UFC.
You may have changed my mind. You may have convinced me here. I actually went with Ankalaev, as much as I'm a Poetin stan. I think he wins against Khalil Rountree without question. I think after that fight, maybe he actually goes up to heavyweight. Maybe. I know he was talking about going down to middleweight. That's the worst career move ever. Please don't do that. So I think he might move up to heavyweight. That's the dream. And then I think maybe he does eventually vacate that title. He goes up to heavyweight, loses against Tom, and then maybe retires, and that's when he vacates the title. Like, it is a sad storyline, but realistically, we could be getting closer to Poetin's retirement.
Yeah, I think Poetin's gonna be very similar to like Habib, where they were both at the top for like not as long as some of the other guys, but they were just so dominant at the top.
That's a good comparison.
I don't know. I just think that Pereira's like, I don't see a world where he vacates it within a year's time, basically. You know, like, right. I think it could be like a more than like a year or two kind of thing.
Well, what I was thinking is, I think it makes sense for him to keep the belt if he goes up and challenges. But I think that if he goes up and challenges and loses, then I think he either retires or he needs to come back down and refight for the belt. I don't know. I see Ankalaev giving him the most problems out of anyone in that division. And yeah, it does feel weird to like think about Poetin not in like a championship.
Yeah, that'd
fight,
be so weird.
Like without the belt, that feels really weird. But who knows? Maybe Tom fights Cyril Gane in like early 2025, and then Poetin fights him like mid 2025. Do you see that Tom wants to fight twice every year for the belt? That's my goat.
Twice a year is like, it should not be unrealistic.
I know,
for fighters to fight twice a year.
I know, but it's just like, it's just good to hear that, you know? Obviously, he's throwing a little bit more shade at John Jones and all that, but yeah. Okay, let's move on to our last division. Who do you have for heavyweight?
I have Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, of course.
I think that Jones and Stipe both retire after 309, and then about halfway through 2025, we see Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane for the belt. And then at the end of 2025, I could see potentially Tom versus Pereira or early 2026.
Imagine the super fight. Tom versus Pereira at Madison Square Garden in November.
If both pull out.
We get Stipe versus Jones too. Stipe's 45. No, for my heavyweight pick, I went with Sergey Spivak.
Great fighter.
No, Tom, it has to happen. I think that storyline of Jones versus Stipe is gonna finish. They're not gonna do anything after that. They're gonna retire, and then Tom versus Gone for the undisputed. That's the most logical thing that's gonna happen. I don't see any other way that Tom fights anyone else. Right? Like he's beaten everyone else.
There's like the 1% chance of him fighting John Jones.
1%. Yeah.
Like, and I'm keeping that as like a generous 1% because I don't want to get excited. You know, as much as I want it, I don't want to be disappointed when John Jones takes off his gloves.
Yeah, it's going to be sad. We're going to get so many good pictures in MSG of like Tom looking like all stoic, like looking at the ring at Jones. Imagine if we get a face off though. Beautiful. Even that would be good enough for a thumbnail. Oh. That's all I ask for. Okay, let's call it there. Who else do you think could be a champion? I think we had pretty logical picks this time.
It's one of those videos where you can't go out and like name random people. You know, there's like
Michelle Pereira.
Max like 3 or 4. Why are you so hung up on that pick from yesterday?
No, I'm just saying Michelle Pereira.
No, that is a good pick. Okay. That's going to do it for today. Let us know who you think is going to be the champion by the end of 2025, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
See ya.